Yeah, it definitely sucks when you're eliminated from the playoffs, 100% validating that. But the season isn't over yet. There is still another game to be played, and I know that as a fan base, we're frustrated, but we also always show up, and that is one thing I wanna talk about. Imma talk more about the last game that the Blues have of the season here on Locked On Blues. Also, new intro.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh my goodness, a new intro. It's kind of like we're at a new chapter. Isn't that so cool? Hi, guys. It's Haley, your host of Locked On Blues. So, today I'm going to talk to you from my heart, a message to our fan base about this season. Positive moments from the season. I asked you on Twitter at Locked On Blues, and it's not the off season yet. We still have one more game. The Blues, they did win actually this Saturday and against the Kraken. So they had one more game against the Stars, so I'll talk about that. Isn't that new intro so cool? I love it. I picked out the music because I thought it had some rhythm and blue, you know what I'm saying? So a lot to get to, and I'll explain why I'm in a positive mood after this. But today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code Locked On NHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. So St. Louis. Honestly, this season did not go the way that I hoped it would go. I thought for sure that they would get a wild card spot, right? But I have a message to all of us here. I have seen tremendous improvements with certain players, and I'm going to talk about what you saw coming up soon. But I saw a Robert Thomas have another amazing season. I saw a Jake Neighbors grow as a player. I saw a Jordan Bennington look good in net. I saw a Joel Hofer improve. There are so many positive takeaways that I can have from this season. And of course, we went through some really hard things this season too, with losing Ruby and not doing much at the trade deadline. The last year's offseason sucked. As a fan base, I believe that we are the most passionate fans in the National Hockey League for many reasons. One, we wear the blue note with pride. And two, we always have a sense of belief when it comes to our team. The Blues, sure, they lost some games that they should have won, right? And I know that this offseason, you and I will have some conversations about it with the Sharks, with the Blue Jackets. I get it. But also, if this team was in the East, they would be in the playoffs. So they're not so far off from potentially gaining a couple more assets this offseason and becoming a playoff team next season. It sucks that it's not this season, but they were the last team in the West to be eliminated from playoff contention. So I guess that they fought till the very end, and they did. Unfortunately, that loss against the Canes, I mean, that sucked. That was an awful game. If anybody watched that game, you can even attest to how awful it was. But as a Blues fan, and this is coming from my fan side of me, not my reporter side, but as a Blues fan, am I disappointed? Obviously. Am I surprised? Not really. I'm surprised that the Blues lost, honestly, all 3 games against the Sharks, but other than that, not much of the season surprised me. I knew that this team was gonna have a bit of struggle. And I think back to when I was able to interview the players, and those interviews will be up starting this week, that I've been keeping kind of in a vault because it was a lot of evergreen comments, and this team has something special. And I do believe that. I believe that there is talent there, right? I just think that they need a couple more assets to help improve what they already have with the talent. Obviously, Kevin Hayes was scratched the last 3 games leading up. I mean, not the Kraken game, obviously, but when they were fighting to try to get in the playoffs. And, you think about that offseason, right? And you think about the moves that they could have made, that they should have made, and the moves that they actually did make. And I think this offseason was a huge indication that, hey, this just wasn't going to be our year. Edward asked a question and says, They should sit out Thomas, Kyrum, Booch, and Binnington. Game is meaningless. Why risk top talent? And thank you for asking this because this is a question I see quite a bit sometimes. I think that the pace of the game against the Kraken, and if you watch the game, you can definitely attest that there is a huge difference from that game to how they played in their last previous games. It wasn't as a fast pace. There wasn't as much, checking. It just seemed to be kind of like a beer league preseason type game. Kraken obviously have been eliminated for quite a while. Blues eliminated. So it's just, playing the game. But what's the point, honestly, in sitting out these guys? They're gonna be practicing this off season. It just getting them more reps, working on different things, drawing up different plays, getting them on the ice and trying new things in games that, yes, are meaningless, but it also is meaningful because you're still playing 60 minutes of an NHL game. So you can experiment with different lines, you can experiment with different plays. And, you know, that's, I guess, the nice thing about these meaningless games is that it's an opportunity to work on some things that you wanted to maybe work on this season, but didn't want to risk losing those 2 points. These games allow you to do so. Hey, I'm not a coach. I don't know, but that's just my philosophy. So, yeah, Joel Hofer, he got the start in net. No surprise in that one. It was really nice, though, hearing Panger again. And even Chief was on the broadcast. So it was a really fun broadcast that they did on Saturday, and I enjoyed the game. There was a sense of pressure that I felt was kind of taken off my shoulders while watching that game. Um, in a sense of whatever happened, happened, right? I hate it because it's such a bad feeling to know that you're watching a hockey game that's not gonna mean anything in a sense. I know I just said it means something, but in a sense of knowing that when they did gain those 2 points, it doesn't matter, right? It sucks. It really does suck, but I think we kind of figured that this would be the case. They had a 0.3% chance of making it to the playoffs. And yes, if they won, even remember when they lost against Detroit like a couple weeks ago, and we talked about how that game even was like a season-ending game because Detroit truly lit up the Blues. And then we have the San Jose games, and then we have the Vegas game, and that the loss against the Carolina Hurricanes wasn't the reason why the Blues the season ended. Yes, in that current moment, that's why it ended, but that's not why it ended. There was more factors that went into it. And I think when you truly evaluate the season and you realize, hey, this team that was fighting to be in the playoffs didn't beat. They were the only team that couldn't beat the San Jose Sharks. And again, it's not a diss on San Jose, but they are one of the worst teams in the National Hockey League. That's a clear indication that, maybe this team just isn't as good as some of the other teams out in the West. And if the Blues were to be in the playoffs, do you think they would go on this miracle run how they did back when we won the cup? I just find it really hard to believe that they would have made it out of the first round. I mean, it's always a possibility, right? But the Blues right now, just to give you perspective, and I know points don't matter, they have 91 points. The Las Vegas Golden Knights have 96. So even if they did hypothetically beat those Carolina Hurricanes, the max points that the Blues could get was 95. So they would still be eliminated. So that, in a sense, makes me feel a little bit better that knowing, hey, at the end of the day, even if they did win, they would have still been eliminated. Because I think that as a fan base, a lot of our frustration, because again, I'm a part of a fan base, I'm a fan. I believe that a lot of our frustration fell into that Carolina game. Bad game, 100%. They looked awful out there. But you have to remember, too, Carolina is also one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. So it wasn't going to be an easy game at all, but it is what it is. So I think that when you truly look at it that way, it should make you feel a little bit of relief. Now, I'm not saying, hey, this is going to make you feel so much better because guess what? It's not. It's going to hurt. It's going to be frustrating and it's going to sting. I am still thoroughly annoyed about this whole situation. and I'm going to talk about why the season is not over coming up soon, because it's not over, and I am so sick of everybody saying, "Oh, it's the off season." No, there's still some more things going on before we get to the off season. But I do want to talk to you about my friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit only. Available to U.S. customers. So I asked you on Locked On Blues on the Twitter page about, hey, what are some positives that you could take away from this season? Because the season isn't over yet, but I wanted to also remind everybody here how there is some positives that you can maybe take away. And I think that's also just as important. And reading these replies on Twitter just made me really happy because it just brought me back to some of these really cool moments that I've experienced and I got to talk to you about. So, Sideline St. Louis Blues says, where is it? Ah. And honestly, Joel Hofer. Yep. And I said he made a lot of improvement, stepped up big time. You remember at the beginning of the season when Hofer just wasn't playing well, like one bit, and we all panicked. And we said, oh, should he go back to the AHL and should Subban come up? Well, that didn't happen. So he did improve. Tony just put a blank space, and that got the most likes. Greg says, Bennington, that's about it. Tanya says, Neighbors definitely, and Parayko has really turned it around this season. Jake Neighbors. Are you kidding me? What a season for Jake Neighbors. He just looks so good on the ice. He's going to continue to develop and improve. And Colton Parayko, too. I mean, I know everyone was like, oh, I didn't see much from him. Defensively, we needed him, and he stepped up big time. So I'm happy that Tanya said that. The man says, I'm proud of Jake Neighbors. Who isn't proud of Jake Neighbors? Honestly, the highlight of the season, right? Jaron says, Banner Neighbors were something to behold. Parayko really improved. Definitely a step up from last year. Playing consistent hockey and got some solid backing on the blue line. Improve the power play and then add some of that young talent. It could be a deadly force. Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. He stepped up big time. Laser says, goaltending Neighbors and Bolduc. Zach Bolduc. And that was another interview that I had. A really fun one with Bolduc. Again, a guy that came in kind of during like a really tough part when the Blues were kind of like crumbling a little bit. And he played great hockey. My cat, by the way, this is so random, but she is sleeping on, I don't know if you can see. Oh, when you can't see, but she is sleeping on the side. And she kind of scared me for a second. So I apologize. It's so cool. Dylan said Jake Neighbors looking like he's going to be a legit top 6 power forward in years to come. That's what I'm saying. It's Jake Neighbors. Masta Clean says Neighbors blossoming and Binner improving. He is still a top goalie in the league despite what other fan bases say. And I saw this power ranking. I forget. I want to credit them. I just forget where I saw it. But they had Binnington listed as number 7 in goalies from this NHL season. I think that Binnington sometimes gets a little bit of hate in a sense. I think that he did have a good season, right? The defense didn't always show up, wasn't working with some questionable. It was just questionable what he had to work with. But he is a great goalie, and he kept the Blues alive in so many games, all the shootouts, overtime. And I think that Binnington kept his emotions under control this season. Not once did he freak out on the ice or try to start a fight or poke check somebody. He really just held his own. So it was a good season for Bennington. Penguin Note says the 8-2 win over the Avalanche. What a game that was when Captain Braden Shen and Pavel Buchnevich both got hat tricks. That was such a fun game. I did enjoy that tremendously. I remember that game just like it was yesterday. That was a good one. Passing says Bennington's bounce back, Hooper's emergence as the backup, Jake Neighbors' breakout season, Robert Thomas establishing himself as the number one center. Absolutely. The young guys are getting a chance. Bolduc and Dean and Matt Kessel becoming a solid middle pair D-man. A lot of positives from this season. Absolutely. Matthew Kessel, too, had a good season. Storm says Bennington is still him. I just need to find the defense to match. And I think that's what we need to work on this offseason. And by we, I mean you, Doug Armstrong. You need to find that defense. Jake says Bennington and Hofer, Neighbors and Bolduc. And Lil says Bennington and Robert Thomas. And Nick in St. Louis says Neighbors and Bolduc. So I think the overall consensus is that Jake Neighbors just was a true positive. So that makes me just so excited for him. I remember covering Neighbors for years, right? One of my favorite prospects on the Blues. And I think that this season, it just goes to show that the Blues can draft pretty well. And just how Neighbors was playing this season, he stepped up tremendously. And I loved watching him and Robert Thomas play together. I just think that Neighbors and Thomas are so similar in so many ways, but yet so different. But that just gives me hope for the future. So yes, a Jake Neighbors season, like a good neighbor, Jake was there. So I love that. I'm going to talk about why the season is not over. Again, if you have any comments about this, about positive moments from the season, let me know in the comments on YouTube, and I would love to read what you have to say. But I also want to get into something about the season not being over, but I want to tell you about my friends over at Sleeper. It's the end of the season, Blues fans. And listen, we didn't finish how we wanted to, but there's always next season. But I want to remind you that you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey. Because of Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. And this is where tomorrow you're going to want to take a guy like a Jake Neighbors or Robert Thomas to record more or less in their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win 100 times, bet on Sleeper. You need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Blues fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nailing your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code Locked On NHL, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. So I said that the season isn't over. And guess what? It's not over because the Blues have only played 81 games. And I didn't mean tomorrow, I meant Wednesday. Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. we are in Dallas taking on the Stars, and that will be the last game of the season, and it will be over. So yeah, it's almost done. But that means a couple things. Support the Blues. I'm not saying watch the whole game if you don't want to, but don't say things like it's the off season. Say it's the off season after the game on Wednesday. Why do I say this? It's because you never know. Maybe some of the younger guys will get a chance. You just don't know what positives you can take away from this game. It's disappointing. 100% I'm disappointed. I wanted playoff hockey in St. Louis again. I hate that we went back-to-back years not being in the playoffs, okay? But the season isn't over until it is over. It's over after the game on Wednesday. Sure, are chances of going to the playoffs over? Yes, but the season isn't over. And That's always been something that bothers me, just because my love for this team is so extreme. I can't even put into words sometimes, but how much I love the St. Louis Blues. And I just wanted to put that out there that, even though it's just not over, so let's not think to say the off season yet. I have a lot of exciting news when it comes to this off season. First off, I will be at the NHL draft covering the St. Louis Blues. So I am so excited to be getting that exclusive coverage for all of you and talk to some of our newest prospects that we're going to draft. Obviously, my favorite part of the season is doing our draft prospect breakdown, which it's almost a 1-year anniversary of Locked On Blues, too. So that'll be cool. But there's a lot to look forward to. I think the reason maybe why I'm not as upset is of all the excitement I feel about hope. I think we're going to have a different coach. I don't think Drew Bannister is going to be our coach. I don't. I think there's a lot of positives that we can take away, a lot of excitement that we can have. And game 82 hasn't been played yet. So let's enjoy this week as best as we can. Other teams might feel defeated and they might feel bad about themselves, but we're St. Louis. And we just have such a passion for our players, for, the Blue Note. And I just know that Wednesday's game, it's not gonna be easy because I did have the Stars to win the cup this year, so it's gonna be a tough one. But who knows? Like, maybe something really positive happens with some of our guys that will make us even more excited about this offseason. That's my takeaway. I believe in always supporting your team, even when you're out of contention. Last year was tough. That really sucked. And this year it sucks even more, but I think we had a feeling with knowing that, there was not a lot of moves made this past off season. But yeah, until game 82 is done, it's not the off season. I'm in so many Blues' group chats, and everyone's like, okay, I'll see you in October. I'm like, October, we have the draft, we have off season, we have, preseason. Like, it's not October. We're going to have a lot of things come out in terms of hockey land. I mean, okay, think about June. Oh, that sucks. It's April, so May's kind of boring. It's just the playoffs. That sucks. And I have nothing to, and like, it's not like we're in the playoffs, so that even sucks even more. So May, yeah, we can be upset in May. Fine. We have May. June is draft. July, summer, woohoo. August, then you have training camp. September, you have preseason. October, we have hockey again. So, yeah, it may seem like it's a little bit of a long time, but in reality, it's not. And I can tell you this, up until the draft, I'm going to be so busy with all the prospect talks, and I'm sure moves will be made once those playoffs end. So, a lot to be done, coaching to discuss. So, don't think just because the season is over, it's not over. We're going to have a very busy and hectic offseason in St. Louis. And I will talk to you tomorrow here on Locked On Blues. Bye. Let's go Blues.